I mean, belonging is really one of our core needs. God's made us to want to belong and have that desire. Why have we missed this so much, though? This idea of belonging in the church and in leadership.
Well, I think the main reason that we've missed it is that there was an Enlightenment influence that came into us. Like we fought against the Enlightenment, but it influenced us in subtle ways we didn't recognize. And one of them was that out of the Enlightenment came the idea that reason is the core thing about being human. But the second generation of the Enlightenment moved past reason and said it's actually the will is the most fundamental thing about being human. And so that philosophical movement is called voluntarism. And what voluntarism taught us was that everything boils down to choice. And so we sort of read that back into the Bible and we turned everything into a choice, right? We turned salvation into a choice, make a decision for Christ, right? We turn, as opposed to attach to Christ, be grafted into the vine, let that attachment grow. It became transactional. So choices turn everything transactional. It's very difficult to have a lot of joyful bonding attached, relationship when my whole relationship is just, I'll do this for you, you do that for me, and you give me money, I'll do that, or whatever it is. It's all tit for tat. That's transactional. The what we're talking about here is bigger than that. So anyway, back to voluntarism, though. It's this idea of the will. And so what is out of voluntarism that we began saying love is a choice, right? Joy is a choice, salvation, everything became a choice. And so now we read the Bible and we just see choice in it, when if we actually read closely, there's nothing about choice in that text. We've just sort of read it into there. And it's not that choices aren't important. Don't get me wrong. It's not like it's attachment or choice, but the brain, I think, helps us understand this, and that attachment comes first in the brain and then choices. And I think that's the way God designed it. And that is that he wants us, because of our attachments, to make loving choices. But we don't have to just choose to create a loving attachment to my wife every day. I have that when I wake up. I have to sometimes remind myself that it exists and make choices consistent with it. But I'm not just choosing to start loving her that's not what's going on.
When you talk about the believing in the attachment aspect of things, and that influences our choices, do you think that that's one of the things that's been missing a lot in the church, because we focus so much on the choice aspect as an individual and not as belonging and attaching to a group of people?
Yeah, no question, because that's the emphasis on choice slides very naturally into performance, right? And that is making the right choices, is performing the right way. The idea of the soil, and you look back on your life, you go, when did I grow the most as a Christian? When did I find it the easiest to grow? And it was almost always when I was in a group that was happy to be together. And I was, me and my people, we were doing this together, right? That's when I flourish. And it's because all of the nutrients of that relational joy fuel growth. Well, what happens is if you say, well, that's a nice icing on the cake if you can get there. But what we really need is a disciplined, quiet time and practicing these spiritual disciplines, making sure that you're making all the right choices and doing all these other things. What we've essentially done is if you remove joy and relational joy out of the discipleship process, it becomes draining, right? It becomes a lot of hard work and it's all on you. So it's not that those things aren't important, but if I'm doing them out of, it's like the difference is the joy the foundation, or is the joy the icing on the cake, right? And I'm like, if joy is actually at the foundation of what's going on, all those other things just become much easier. Without them, I need a ton of accountability, and accountability is basically fear. It's like, if you don't do this, I will do that. So what we're trying to do here is say, well, it's not that accountability is always bad, but there's something better. And that is that if I, as a leader, if I can create a culture where people are bonded together in joy, then they don't need nearly as much accountability, because in fact, I've got to tell them to go home. Okay, that's enough. We've been doing this long enough. Everybody, take a break, because I'm doing what I love with people that I love, and we're in this together. And there's an energy that is created. It's when you're lacking joy and when you're lacking that energy that you have to build everything on accountability.
Is that possible in a church that's larger?
Yes, because it happens in spheres. So senior pastor and exec team build joy with each other. That has to be a joy-based culture. that passes then. So then when the other execs are meeting with their team, that joy gets passed on. And when others get, then that joy gets passed on. In other words, every leader is responsible for creating a joy-based culture in the teams that they lead. Now, in that joy-based culture, I'm just saying that's first. It's the priority. Then comes, okay, here's what we need to accomplish. And this is why we need to get there. But if you flip those, then what happens is everybody's doing everything out of fear of what will happen if I don't. And I'll be honest, there's some big churches that are notorious for chewing up and spitting out staff.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So why are they doing this? Why are they chewing up and spitting out staff? It's because they've lost the joy component to the leadership, and they're not leading with maturity. And so in the absence of joy and maturity, the only thing left to you is fear. And it's like, get this done or else. And so there are, don't get me wrong, we got, salespeople got to bring in money, coaches got to win, people got to eat, right? You got to get this stuff out there. So there are things that have to happen. But even there, if you lose sight of why you're doing it in the first place, and you're only doing it to hit the numbers, and you're only doing it to get there, the joy gets sucked out of it. And pretty soon you don't want to do that anyway. You're just going to go do something else. So the idea here is we got to find a way to keep joy at the core of what's going on, even as we're pursuing excellence and pursuing the numbers.